Okay, it is 4:31 on Thursday, July 11th, 2019, Board of Commissioners meeting on a work study, affiliation work study, and I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Whitcop at this time.
Did you want to do a roll call?
Oh, yes, I do need to do a roll call. Val, please.
President Norris.
Here.
Vice President Aaron.
Here.
Secretary Spikers.
Missing in action.
Affected.
AWOL.
Commissioner Pollard.
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Here.
Thank you.
Now it's your turn, Dr. Whitcop.
All right. Well, let's jump back in. So I brought back some of the slides that we looked at last time, again, just to kind of keep us regularly seeing them and just opportunities to make sure that we remain aligned. And then if there's any opportunities that we need to edit any of them as we've gone along the way. So this was the proposed structure slide. So there's been nothing of substance that's happened that would change this. So again, this is just to, again, reorient us all. And then just the 4 bullet points that came out of the RFP. And then when we looked at this last month, I know my intention was just to bring the information back out of the RFP and some of the sub-points beneath that. I think we're kind of creating, and Mr. Pollard, you had a fair number of questions about them, about the sub-points, and the sub-points were intended to be for examples. So I thought maybe it's just best to take the sub-points out, and then each time we would just look at the 4 reasons. I know when I'm in conversations with people, a variety of conversation, and they hear that we're working on this transaction, they'll ask the question, why? And so it helps me to have the 4 answers that I can give to them. So my intention is to arm you with the answers, because I'm certain you're getting asked the same questions as well as you're out. And then I just grabbed some bullet points from our last month's conversation. Again, just knowing, and Steve and I were talking about this morning, and that just knowing that the weeks and months that are ahead of us as we get deeper and deeper into affiliation and the transactional work, just the volume of work that we're going to be hit with is going to be just more and more and more, and it's going to really feel kind of not tidal wave, but big wave-ish. And so my hope is just to kind of come back and revisit where we've been, just again, for alignment and for edits, and to make sure that we all remain, because it's so important that we all remain kind of together so that we can keep moving forward. So feel free to offer different thoughts on what you feel like that we accomplished last month when we were together. But the key points that I had jotted down around the concept of the trust, the money that's set aside for restricted dollars, that it'll be funded with a portion of unrestricted tax income and a portion of our unrestricted cash. So, and that is just funded from those sources. We still have not gotten to the point of saying how much needs to be in there, but we got to that point. And that the reasons for any potential access other than the dissolution of the transaction, that any reasons for access need to be very clear and have very clear intentions behind them, and there needs to be a high threshold for accessing them. So some of the conversation around that was there needs to be absolute clarity that there are no other resources for the funds. We need to all be in agreement that it is for a good reason, and that it's for a reason that meets all needs. I think that the example that was being used in that piece of the conversation was what if an addition to the building was being considered? And so there would need to have such a really high threshold, clear reasons, clear purposes. There also the concept that you all really insist on is that trust is not a resource for maintenance, for routine maintenance. That is what gets taken on in the agreement, in the lease transaction. Take the maintenance comes as part of that. Okay, And the ownership or the distribution of the trust in the scenario of a dissolution of the agreement needs to have clarity based on the trigger. So that needs to be, we need to walk into the trust development with some clarity around that.
Val, would you make a note that Commissioner Spikers is here? Thank you.
Thanks.
And then the final concept that I had jotted down was there needs to be a process for bilateral consensus, meaning this group as the landlords, as the owners, and then the renters consensus if there's any capital spending and performance thresholds of eligibility in order to accomplish this. So did you all feel like that there was a different high order bullet points that we need to make sure we capture in our summary? We have very detailed notes of what was said, but just as a great touch point for us to keep returning to around the trust.
I think trying to recall it a month later is challenging. Maybe when we do these, we can come back to it at the end of this meeting and say, what do you think are the big takeaways?
We can do both.
Cool.
We can do both. Because my intention is each time we'll just come back and we'll look at, even next month, we'll just look at trust again because it's just great to
The reminders are
just
great.
really keep it in our
Yeah.
minds. Yep. Yep, absolutely. Anything else that just like, if you think about our conversation last month, it didn't represent here?
Not offhand. Let me think.
That's totally
Yeah.
fine. So then, tonight we should go through our list. Yes, list. So tonight we'll spend actually a fair amount of time on due diligence. And so I'm just going to leave this slide up there and as we go through our agenda, and then we'll come back to our timeline slides. So the due diligence, I think Val gave each of you a list of the due diligence. So question, it should be in an individual packet, and it's noted that it is, thank you,
Yeah.
Just a reminder, all the information in the due diligence is protected under the non-disclosure agreement, and it is extremely important to overlay that we keep that we honor that. So we've marked it as confidential, just as a reminder not to let it pass out of your hands, and it will not be available for public records disclosure until the very end of the transaction is finished. So if you take it, great. If you say, I don't even want to own it, I don't want to have it in my possession when I walk out the door, just give it back and we'll shred it in there. But two things that we want to accomplish tonight around the due diligence. And I should say, you're not seeing all of it. It was just first round. This is just the first phase of documents that we've been able to go through and be able to give you some feedback on. But two questions. One is, as we're using this form tonight, do you feel like the columns are going to help you in receiving the information? So just hold that in your mind as we're looking at this. And then we'll talk about each individual line that we have information to talk about.
Some of this already have reviewer comments, but
So
most.
that's exactly what we're bringing to you tonight.
Okay.
So just a reminder, thank you, Emma, because it's a perfect segue to the process here is the information comes onto the shared site. It's a protected shared site. Somebody on our review team has been identified to be the reviewer of those documents. And so they go in, and what you're seeing tonight are, Steve actually was the reviewer of all of them. And so he's going to walk you through what it was he looked at, why it was on the request list, and what his assessment was, or what he learned as he did the review from his subject matter expert perspective.
I just have a question on the item and description. I kind of get lost in all of that.
Okay.
So I'm wondering who came up with the item descriptions and why?
who came up with it was a combination of the review team, so Steve, Brian Bauer,
Mhm.
our affiliation council, and then we had passed it through this group once before as well.
Mhm.
It was very early on, so it probably would have been harder to, we weren't as deep as we are now, so you wouldn't have had as many contributions to make as we do right now.
Yeah, because I went back a couple of months. I didn't see.
Yeah, it was it was probably February.
It was a number of months ago when we developed this.
Okay.
So these map to a request that we made?
Yeah,
Okay.
these
Okay.
are the requests that we
Got
made.
it.
This is the information we have requested from them.
Got it. And it's noted where it's not, where they weren't able to reply yet, or have
No,
there
it's
been
just
any?
noted where we haven't completed we haven't looked at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
So everything that we've requested has not yet been delivered.
right.
So, but rather than trying to sit down and go through these multiple pages and multiple documents and trying to get all of that, like your brain soak it all in, because it's coming to us in slow waves, that felt like it's a more digestible way to present it to you too.
Makes sense.
Was to bring it to you with what we have right now, and then next month we'll bring the next group will be there. It probably won't take beyond next month to get it all, because we're really pushing to get it in. That's the intention here.
But I would doubt all the items will be reviewed by next month, but we will have
We'll have
access to them and be in the process of reviewing.
So you have access right now for some of the documents or
Yes.
all of the documents?
Some of the documents.
Those that have comments,
And some more.
the blank ones doesn't have, that means you
So
haven't
what
reviewed them.
What you're seeing is the entirety of what we have asked for,
Mhm.
and so we will be going through just talking about some of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
And where there are comments, someone has reviewed them and made comments.
That's all right.
Doesn't mean that the others aren't available, we just need some more time.
So reviewer comments are up to date in terms of all the comments the reviewers once made?
Yes.
Well, it seems like they're kind of lagging behind here a little bit. Because if I recall, we were supposed to have an agreement in place by the end of July or early August.
Not agreement in place, agreement now at the phase of working.
Or a draft agreement
Correct.
by the end of July.
Correct.
Oh, yeah.
By the end of
To
July.
react to and go back.
Well, we can't do that until we get these. So why are they delaying?
No, I don't think these have anything to do with
Yeah.
each other. So this is us assessing them as a potential partner.
Mm-hmm.
The document, the definitive agreement document, is another step in the process. And yes, we have been talking to them about, we think we should probably be seeing a draft agreement by now. And so those are conversations just today. So
Well, how
they're-
can we even look at a draft agreement before we get and analyze what they have that we've requested? When did we request this stuff?
These requests were submitted early part of May, late April, early May.
Probably late April, I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
So 6.5 months ago, or 2.5 months ago.
The same.
2.5 months ago, they were submitted. That's
Yeah.
10 weeks.
So two things, part of the problem was the site, we gave them the request, but the site to put them on and share them wasn't up and ready yet, so there was a slight delay getting that. So it was probably the middle of May, second to third. week of
Before they
May,
actually
before
had
that-
access.
Before that site
Well,
was ready. for them to
Yeah, but I
start
mean, all you gotta do is upload, right? It takes part of a day. So I'm a little concerned about them right now and why they're not timely doing things that were supposed to be done, like maybe a month ago.
So in the due diligence review, it says here,
You might wanna
July
bring that up with
15th.
them, 'cause,
So I regularly bring that up with them.
yeah, tell them that the board is concerned
So
at this point.
I have to be a little careful
Mhm.
because you have to be careful about, irritating because.
No, I understand that,
Yeah.
and I understand that, I totally understand, it's kind of like I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
But I don't want, you know, a draft agreement and then we have a week to think about it and change it or whatever. And my thought is if we don't have a draft agreement by the end of July or maybe the first week, at least by the next meeting, there's going to be an issue because of the time constraints that our council has talked
So
about.
the way that we've actually framed that question or the response back is our timeline, we all agreed to a timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And so the timeline says we should be at a different place than we are right now. So just calling on the agreement for accountability and also reminding them that they have only three board meetings left this year. So if they have to get moving so that they can get it
For
through
their
board
fiscal year, is that what
process.
you're
No,
referring to?
For the
For
year,
their
because they
year.
meet every other month.
They meet every
Oh,
other
I
month. That's
see.
an important
Oh.
factor.
Right, so reminding them that actually the impetus and needs to be coming from their side because they're the ones with limited access and limited time opportunities.
When is their next board meeting, in August or July?
No, I'm working backwards, so November, September, August.
When,
No, July.
July.
We should have one shortly.
when we put this together, because right there in the affiliation class, due diligence review, was Overlake involved in the time frame? Because right there it says July 15. Are they
Which one
aware?
are you looking at?
This is from the, this is the one that way back.
That's-
And right here it says July 15. Were they involved in the process of putting the time frame there,
So
the timeline? Because I'm just
That
curious
is-
to see.
That is dated, what
Yeah,
you're referring to.
it's
That-
July.
No.
It's about
What
No,
is,
that you're looking at, that slide deck.
this
that's-
one.
that- no,
This one, yeah,
that
yeah.
slide deck is pretty dated, so I wouldn't use that. I
Our-
would use this timeline.
what is
This
our
the one that
council,
we've all agreed to.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying, I just
I have
wanted
that,
to
yeah, okay,
clarify.
okay.
This is the timeline that
Yeah.
Overlake and us have agreed to.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah,
this
so
was not,
They
they were not involved then?
they were involved, but there's been more information that's been learned in the meantime, so I think that was premature to put that detail on it.
Okay.
So I would use this that we post every month as your reference point rather than that.
Well, that was highlighted, the yellow one, well, that's okay.
Sorry,
What does our council think about the delays? Does he think there's a problem or an issue with them about what they want to be doing and how they're going to, I mean, is it going to affect the way we enter into any kind of an agreement?
No, part of the delay we do know is because they have been spending a lot of time looking at our financials and trying to understand them because the financials this year look different than they did last year and because our trajectory has not been great in these first 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So that's causing them, because when I asked him, I said, is it causing you to pause, like we're moving forward? And the answers that I've been given is no, it doesn't change our intention, but what it does do is cause us to stop to try and understand. So that
Well, that's what I'm concerned about. That's what I've been concerned about in the finance meetings for the last 4 months.
Right. Which is why we've been spending a lot of time helping them to understand. We hosted a big group out here 2 weeks ago. Hosted a big group